People think going into the woods alone is peaceful, a way to unplug, get perspective. I used to think that too, until I found the circle. It was late September, and I'd driven out to a state forest 2 hours from the city. No one around, midweek, no tourists, no rangers, trees and silence. I wanted that. Silence. A break from the phone, the job, the noise. I hiked about a mile in, set up a single-person tent by a small creek, and started a fire. It was a quiet evening, wind in the trees, crickets, the kind of natural calm you can't fake. But around 10 p.m., as the fire died down, I saw something deeper in the trees, a strange shape. I thought it was an animal at first, but it didn't move like one dot, so I took my flashlight, left the fire pit, then walked toward it. It was about 50 yards off, a perfect circle of stones, maybe 20 feet wide, each stone knee-high, arranged in a way that didn't look natural. At the very center was a single rotted tree stump, blackened like it had been struck by lightning. But what truly disturbed me was this. Around the edge of the stump were bones. Not animal bones, small, human-shaped bones. Fingers, jaws, even what looked like a child's shoe buried halfway in the moss. And there were scratch marks all over the bark. It's not animal claw marks. Words, let us out greater than we never slept, greater than. He listens. I backed away and sprinted toward my camp, but the path felt, it cranked, like I wasn't retracing my steps, like something had changed the woods around me. 2. The whistle. I made it back to my camp. Or a camp. My tent was there, my fire pit. But my backpack was missing, and my tent zipper was wide open. The flashlight started flickering. The forest around me was too quiet now. No bugs, no breeze. Just a kind of hollow stillness that presses into your ears. And then, from the darkness behind the trees, a whistle. Not a bird, not wind. A deliberate, tuneless whistle, like someone trying to get my attention. 3 notes. Pause. 3 notes. Again, I yelled out, "Hello? Who's there?" No answer. Then, from behind my tent, it's the same whistle, now louder, closer, but I hadn't heard footsteps. No crunching leaves. No movement. I spun and flashed the light. Nothing, except something caught in the corner of my beam. The circle of stones. It was closer, maybe 20 feet from where I'd just been. That wasn't possible. I ran away from it, but there it was. Same black stump. Same bones. The wind picked up suddenly, and I swear it whispered through the leaves. Greater than sit. 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 The flashlight died, and I felt breathing behind me. I ran. I don't remember choosing a direction. I just ran into the trees, arms up, crashing through brush, branches slicing my skin. The whistle chased me. It came from every direction, sometimes high above me in the trees themselves, other times right at my heels. Once, I swear it came from under the ground, echoing like it was inside the earth. I collapsed at one point, sobbing, bloody, lost. Lost. But then I saw lights, weak. Orange glows between the trees. A campsite, and stumbled toward it. A clearing. Not my own, but a circle of old, mossy tents, torn, abandoned. Everything covered in leaves and dirt. Except the center. There was a fresh fire pit, still warm, and carved into the dirt around it were those same words from before. Greater than we never slept. I looked up and froze. Dozens of figures stood silently in the trees around the clearing, not moving, not breathing, some tall, some hunched, some twisted arms, too long, eyes missing. One of them held a whistle made of bone. I blinked, and they were gone. But in their place, at the far side of the clearing, was my backpack, torn open. Inside, my phone shattered. A note I hadn't written. Greater than if you leave. IT follows. I ran. Again. All night. By the time morning light broke, somehow found the dirt road and flagged down a ranger. They took me back, but nothing was there. No tent, no circle, no signs. I'd ever been there. They said I'd imagined it. Night panic, tessellation. But they didn't explain how I had cuts down my arms, bruises, like fingers. Or the whistle I still had in my pocket, the one I never picked up. It still works, and sometimes, late at night, I hear something whistle back. Ritati didn't plan to be alone in the woods that night. I planned to hike a short loop near the state border, 3 miles, back before dusk. But I took a wrong turn, then another, a T, then my phone lost signal, T. Then the sun began to bleed out of the sky like something draining from a wound. By 8:30 p.m., I was completely lost. I had no cell reception, no map, just the dimming flashlight on my phone, a small bottle of water, and a Halfton protein bar. But here's the thing, I wasn't panicked yet. Not really. I've camped before. Gotten turned around. I told myself I'd find the trail again in the morning. Until then, I'd pick a flat spot under a pine, wrap myself in my jacket, and wait it out. But something happened around 10 p.m. I was resting beneath a tree when I heard a sound I'll never forget. A small, high-pitched bell. Just one soft ding, like an old cat collar dot. It came from the woods directly ahead, then another to my left, then 2, at once, behind me. Ding, ding, ding. I stood up fast, turning in a slow circle with the flashlight. Nothing there, no animals, no movement. Then, very faintly, I heard footsteps, light, padded, human, just beyond the trees. I turned off my flashlight and knelt low, hiding behind a log. The footsteps circled me, just out of view. Then, silence, until a soft voice whispered, just behind my left ear, greater than don't answer the bells. I ran until my lungs burned. After maybe 20 minutes of blind sprinting. I found a structure. At first, I thought it was a shed, small, moss-covered, maybe 8 feet by 8 feet, a single window. No light inside, but I didn't care. It had walls, and I needed anything to stop the dark. I moved closer. There was no door, not a boarded door, not a frame, just a wall where the entrance should have been. But the window was wide open, and inside I saw something, a small, handwritten notebook on the floor. I climbed through the window, careful not to disturb anything. It was cold inside. Thule. Cold. The notebook was old, pages warped with age and mildew. A tie could still make out some of the writing. Greater than the bells are not real, one entry said. They are a call, a mimicry. They want you to follow. Don't. Another page. Greater than you'll hear footsteps, voices you recognize, if your name don't respond. And then, greater than they gather in threes, so you'll never see more than one at first. The second is already behind you. The third will only ring the final bell. I didn't realize it at first, but while I was reading, I had begun to hear the bells again, far away, and getting closer. Ding, ding, ding. And then, a soft knock from the wall with no door. I shone my light on it. Nothing there. just weather-worn. Wood dot, then the knock again, and a second time. 3 knocks, then a final bell, just outside the window I came through. I turned, and someone was standing there, tall, pale, head cocked too far to the side, and a strip of bells hanging from its neck, like jewelry. It didn't move. It just watched me. Then it smiled, lips cracked, teeth too long, and began climbing through the window. Asterisk, I didn't wait to see what it wanted. I bolted out the window, sprinting back into the trees, not caring where I went, just away. I could still hear the bells jingling behind me, softly, like wind chimes on a dying breeze. Every time I slowed, I heard it whisper, "Greater than you," answered. You came. Eventually, I crashed down a small ravine and blacked out. When I came to, it was morning, light filtering through the trees. No bells, no footsteps. I climbed out and found myself on a narrow path, one that didn't exist on any map. But it led me back to the trailhead, eventually. 8 hours later, caked in dirt and blood, I made it to the ranger station. They listened, took notes, said I was dehydrated, delirious, suggested a night in the hospital. But they said something else I can't forget. Greater than you're the second person this year to come back talking about the bells. I asked what happened to the first dot. The ranger hesitated. Greater than they went missing again a week later. Left a note behind. He showed me a photo of it for words, all caps, scratched into the wood of their door. Greater than the third found me. I never go near the woods now, but some nights, just as I fall asleep, I hear a faint sound outside my window. Ding dong ding dong dong ding, and a voice, not quite mine, whispering back, "I'm still here." I never believed the stories about the woods near my grandfather's old cabin. He used to warn me when I was a kid, never wander too far after sunset. Things repeat in the trees, he'd mutter, and sometimes they're not just echoes. I'd laugh, thought he was being poetic, creepy old man stuff. But last weekend, I drove out there alone, for peace. After a brutal breakup and a screaming match with my boss, I needed solitude. No phone, no internet. Just trees and sky. The first night was peaceful. Cold, but peaceful. The woods felt big, but not threatening. That changed on night 2. I was sitting by the fire, notebook in my lap, when I heard something in the distance. My voice. Not someone yelling. It's not a sound like my voice. It was exactly what I had said into my voice recorder earlier. It's that day. Greater than don't forget to check the ridge trail tomorrow. Same tone, same breath, same exact inflection that came from deep in the woods, maybe 50 yards out. The hairs on my arms stood up like they were tugged. I turned off the fire and sat frozen. Then again, greater than don't forget to check the ridge trail tomorrow. Identical, too identical. A real echo doesn't happen hours later. A real echo doesn't repeat on command. And a real echo doesn't start walking toward you. Asterisk, I backed into the cabin and locked the door, every creak in the floorboards screaming under my feet. I didn't have cell service, and my satellite radio was down. Nothing worked. It's just me, an old hunting knife, and one flickering lantern. I turned off the lights, waited in silence. Around 2:17 a.m., I heard leaves crunching just outside the window. Then I heard my own voice whisper, "Greater than let me in." Not a shout, not aggressive, calm, familiar. Begging. I peeked out through the corner of the window. and what I sit was me. But not. The figure looked just like me. My jacket, my posture, even the little scar above my left eyebrow. But its smile was wrong. Too wide, too smooth. It's like it had learned the shape, but not the muscles behind it. And it didn't blink. It just stood there, hands hanging loosely, mouth still stretched into that puppet-grin. Then it whispered again. Greater than you forgot to check the ridge trail. My notebook was still on the table. I'd written that line down 3 hours ago. It was reading my words now, and then it tilted its head, jerked suddenly, and another one stepped into view behind it. Also me. Only this one had no eyes, just holes. They both turned toward the cabin and began walking straight to the door. Asterisk, I didn't run. There was nowhere to run to. I grabbed the knife, stood behind the door, breath shallow, smashing against my ribs. No knock, no pounding. Just that damned voice, as calm as ever, right behind the wood. Greater than you left the door unlocked last night. You talked in your sleep. We remember. I slammed a chair against the doorknob, windows shut, curtains drawn, and then silence, until I heard a whisper from inside the cabin, right behind me. We never left. I spun, knife out, but no one there, just the lantern, flickering. Then going dark, in that blackness, I heard dozens of versions of my voice. Some whispering, some crying, some laughing so quietly it sounded wet. I dropped to the floor, hands over my ears, screaming. I don't know how long I stayed like that. Eventually, the sun came up when I looked outside. No footprints, no signs of them, but my notebook was missing in its place. Someone had carved into the wooden table. The trees keep what they copy. I left the cabin that morning, never went back. But sometimes, when I'm walking near trees, or even in my apartment late at night, I hear myself whisper something I never said. Something like, greater than you're not the original anymore. And the voice, it's always coming from behind me. I didn't mean to get lost. I was on a solo camping trip in the northern stretch of the Western Ghats, far from cell towers and far from people, exactly how I wanted it. It was supposed to be a 3-day mental detox from screens, stress, and city noise. Just me, my backpack, and an old camera I was using to document wildlife. I set up camp near a dried creek bed on the second evening. The sun went down earlier than expected, tucked behind a wall of ancient, looming sal trees. I was too tired to make a fire, so I ate a cold energy bar, zipped myself into my tent, and drifted into a light, uneasy sleep. Then, round 2:18 a.m., I woke up to a single, sharp sound, snap like a thick branch, breaking under sudden pressure. Not the kind animals make. The kind people make when they step on something they shouldn't. I stayed still, heart pounding, listening. Silence. Then something touched the side of the tent. It's just a faint dragging sound, like someone walking their fingers along the fabric. I whispered, hello, stupid, I know. But it came out before I could stop it. There was a pause. Then something responded. Not in a language, just a low, dry throat sound, like someone imitating a cough. It was almost mused. I stayed frozen, gripping my knife under the sleeping bag, waiting for it to leave. But it didn't. It circled the tent, slowly, deliberately, then stopped, dead silent, until I heard it whisper my name, greater than Arof. Not shouted, not growled, just spoken, plain and clear. I never told anyone where I was going. Asterisk, I waited until dawn, The moment the first line of gold touched the trees, I unzipped the tent and bolted with my gear half packed. I didn't even eat, just ran through the underbrush, heart hammering. About an hour later, I stumbled onto a clearing. There was something hanging from the tallest tree in the middle. Something that at first looked like a man's raincoat, or maybe an old tarp. But it wasn't it. It was skin, human skin, pale, dried, and hollowed out like it had been peeled off in a single, horrible piece. Even the face was intact, eyelids dangling open, lips shriveled. But what made my stomach twist was that it looked new. Beneath it, I found bones arranged in a circle. 6 of them, small, like children's, and in the center was a wooden totem, carved with dozens of scratched human eyes, some closed, some wide open. There was a crow perched on one of the branches, staring at me. It didn't move when I threw a rock at it, didn't even blink. I snapped a photo of the totem, trying to document it. The shutter clicked, the screen flashed, and the photo deleted itself a second later. I didn't touch anything. It ran. Again. But I kept hearing my name. Not whispered this time. Sung, Aravi, Aravi, in a child's voice, sometimes from behind me, sometimes from in front. Asterisk, I don't know how long I ran. I just know it was no longer about finding the trail. It was about getting away from that voice. At one point, I passed a tree that looked familiar. 5 minutes later, I passed the same tree again, and I knew it was the same one because it had my face scratched into the bark. Not a drawing, not a carving, my actual likeness. Eyes, nose, the scar on my right cheek, perfectly etched with horrifying detail. Below it, words were burned into the trunk. Greater than you. Looked back. I hadn't. Not yet. But as soon as I read that, I couldn't help it. I turned around, and I saw something standing between the trees. Tall, bark-skinned, almost human in shape, but swollen. Its eyes were not on its face. They were scattered across its chest and arms. Hundreds of tiny, blinking human eyes. Some were mine. One of them had the exact brown fleck in the iris that only my right eye had stopped, and then I felt a strange warmth on my face. I touched my cheek. Blood. I looked down. The bark from the tree was peeling off and attaching itself to my skin. My hands, arms, they were turning brown, wooden, veined like roots. My voice began whispering, even though I wasn't speaking. Greater than Arav is part of the forest now. Arav looked back. Arav is one of us. I woke up in a hospital 3 days later. Hikers found me walking barefoot on a road, 60 kilometers from where I started, covered in scratches, blood, and sap. I haven't spoken since, but at night, to hear the voice, still hear it calling out to others, through my mouth, from that tree. Come alone, and come at night. Come see what watches. I wasn't supposed to be out there alone. Asterisk, it was a last-minute solo detour. My friends canceled the hiking trip we'd planned for months, but I had already booked leave, packed, and prepped. So I told myself, one night in the woods won't kill me. Asterisk, I chose the Mavron Ridge Trail in central India. Remote, scenic, mostly safe. Asterisk, I reached the base late afternoon. Set up a quick tent, boiled some noodles, and by sunset, I was already regretting it. There was too much silence, not peaceful, more like watchful. The kind that made your ears feel like they're straining to hear something you can't yet hear. Asterisk, at around 11:50 p.m. I heard the first sound. Breathing. Not mine. Asterisk, it came from the trees, just beyond the firelight. Deep, slow, and wet, like someone who'd run a mile and now stood just out of sight, watching me. I grabbed my flashlight and swept it through the darkness. Nothing. But when I turned it off, I heard it again. Inhale, exhale, just one breath, then silence. Asterisk, I convinced myself it was an animal, a wild boar, maybe. Tamed myself into the tent and tried to sleep. Asterisk, but at exactly 3:08 a.m. I woke up gasping because something had leaned against the tent fabric right by my head. Asterisk, and breathed in, right beside my ear. I didn't sleep after that. I sat up in the tent with my knife and torch, heart thudding, every 15 to 20 minutes. I'd hear it again, sometimes from the left, sometimes from behind, sometimes right over me, but never footsteps, never rustling leaves, just breath. At dawn, I packed and left. Didn't pee. I just ran. I followed the trail markers, white circles painted on tree trunks, but after 2 hours, saw something that made me stop cold. There was a white circle on a tree, but under it, someone had smeared something reddish-brown. It wasn't paint. There was a handprint, dragging downward like someone had been clawing the tree, and beside it, scratched deep into the bark, greater than "Don't breathe" back. I stood there, panting hard from running. I realized I was breathing loud. Then I heard 2 breaths, mine, at night, and one behind me. I whipped around. Nothing, but now the forest had gone dead silent. Not a bird, not a bug. Even the wind had stopped, and the smell hit me like rotting leaves mixed with something coppery blood. I backed away slowly, my breath shaky, and suddenly, directly in my ear, I heard, "Greater than you, breathe back." Asterisk, I don't remember how I made it out of the woods. Some locals say they found me 2 days later near the edge of a river, soaked and muttering to myself. They brought me to a clinic, told me never to go back. I didn't argue, but here's the thing. I've never been the same since, because he followed me back, at night, when I'm alone. I still hear it. Always between 3:05 and 3:10 a.m., breathing closer and closer, until I can feel his lungs inhaling right behind me. It only stops if I hold my breath. Sometimes I make it, sometimes I don't. And when I accidentally breathe in at the same time as him, I feel something cold crawl into my chest, like something else is trying to breathe through me. The doctor says it's PTSD. The priest says it's a spirit that survived. In the silence, I don't care what it is, but last night, when I was sleeping, I heard it again, only this time, it wasn't behind me, it was inside my lungs, and it whispered, "Greater than now, you're the breather."